My name is Laura, I'm 42, and last week my own father sat across from me and pushed eviction papers across my kitchen table. He thought I'd quietly sign and give up the house my mom left me. But what he didn't know was that I had a folder of my own. And it changed everything. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more family drama and emotional courage stories. Dad didn't knock. He never did. 1 second, I was rinsing a chipped coffee mug in the sink, and the next, I heard the front door creak open. His heavy boots thudded across the wooden floor, each step echoing like a warning. By the time I turned, he was already in the kitchen, clutching a thick manila envelope under his arm. His jaw was tight, and his lips pressed into a thin line. "Sit," he said, pointing to the chair across the table. His voice was sharp, not a request but a command. My stomach clenched as I dried my hands on a dish towel and slowly lowered myself into the seat. The kitchen smelled faintly of burnt toast. The clock ticked louder than usual, marking each second with a sound that felt almost cruel. Dad dropped the envelope onto the table with a dull smack, then slid a stack of papers across the surface until they stopped right in front of me. "You need to sign these," he said flatly. I glanced down. The bold letters at the top made my chest tighten. Notice of eviction. My eyes blurred for a moment, and I blinked hard, forcing myself to stay calm. "This is Mom's house," I whispered, barely able to push the words past the lump in my throat. Dad leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. His flannel shirt stretched across his chest as he sighed like he'd been expecting this exact reaction. "It was your mother's house. She's gone. Laura. You can't afford to keep this place. It's just a building. Bricks. Wood. Nothing more." I wanted to scream, but instead I stared at the tabletop, tracing a scratch in the wood with my finger. The table itself had been Mom's. She used to serve Sunday pancakes on it, humming softly as she flipped them on the griddle. To Dad, it was junk. To me, it was a piece of her. "You think selling this place will fix things for you?" I asked, my voice shaky but growing stronger with each word. He smirked. "It's not about me. It's about reality. You've been clinging to the past, rattling around in this house like a ghost. It's time to move on. Take the money, start fresh." I swallowed hard, my hands tightening in my lap. I wanted to tell him I wasn't alone in this house, that every photo, every creak of the floor, every smell of Mom's garden outside kept me going. But I knew he wouldn't understand. Instead, I let silence hang between us. The old fridge hummed in the background, the ceiling light buzzed faintly, and somewhere outside, a car engine rumbled past. I studied Dad's face, his graying hair, the permanent crease between his brows, the way his eyes avoided mine when he lied. He was confident. He thought I would fold, just like I had so many times before. I thought back to my childhood, sitting at this same table, being told to toughen up whenever I cried. Dad never had patience for weakness. He believed strength was shown through silence, through doing what you were told without question. That was the language he spoke. "Why now?" I finally asked. "Why rush me out?" Dad leaned forward, tapping the top page with his thick finger. "Because the longer you sit here, the more the value drops. The roof needs repairs. The plumbing is old. You don't have the money. I do. Let me sell it before it's worthless." I stared at him, my chest burning. This wasn't about repairs. It wasn't about value. It was about control. Dad couldn't stand the thought of me holding on to something that he didn't. My hands twitched under the table, brushing against the edge of a folder tucked safely under my chair. I had spent months preparing, digging through files, visiting the county clerk's office, and gathering proof. Mom had trusted me. She had made sure of it. But I didn't reach for it. Not yet. Instead, I picked up the papers he'd pushed at me. The edges were crisp, the ink still smelled fresh. He had planned this carefully, probably sat at his desk the night before, imagining how easily I would give in. My name was printed in bold, and there was a line at the bottom waiting for my signature. "What if I don't sign?" I asked quietly. Dad's eyes narrowed. "Then you'll regret it. The court won't be kind. And I won't wait around while you drag this out." The words stung, but more than that, they fueled something inside me. For years, I had let Dad's voice drown out my own. Every decision I made, every step I took, I second-guessed because of him. But not this time. I placed the papers back on the table and pushed them toward him. My hands didn't shake, even though my heart raced. "I'll think about it," I said evenly. Dad studied me, suspicion flickering in his eyes. He wasn't used to hesitation from me. Usually, I either obeyed or broke down. This time, I was calm. "Don't take too long," he muttered, gathering the papers back into a neat pile. He shoved them into the envelope and tapped it against the table, like a gavel striking at the end of a trial. As he stood, the chair legs scraped against the floor with a screech. "You have until the end of the week," he said coldly. "After that, it's out of your hands." I nodded slowly, though inside, I was already planning. He thought he had won. He thought he held the power. But under my chair, my folder waited. And soon, it would speak louder than any words I could say. When the door slammed behind him, I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The kitchen felt smaller, the walls pressing in around me, but I stayed seated. My hands rested on the folder, my fingers tracing its edges. Mom's handwriting, the legal seal, the careful preparation, it was all there. Proof that this house was mine. Proof that Dad couldn't take everything from me, no matter how hard he tried. For now, I stayed silent. But deep down, I knew, the next time Dad sat across from me at this table, it wouldn't be me trembling. It would be him. The folder still rested beneath my hand. Its edges felt rough against my skin, but it carried a weight heavier than paper. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the quiet kitchen, staring at the chair my father had just left empty. His voice still lingered in the air, like smoke after fire, sharp and suffocating. For a long moment, I stayed there, listening. The refrigerator hummed. A branch scraped against the side of the house. Outside, the wind pushed fallen leaves across the porch. The house breathed around me, alive with its familiar creaks and whispers. This wasn't just wood and bricks. It was history. It was Mom. I got up slowly, pressing my hand against the table as if steadying myself. The chair screeched against the floor as I pushed it back, and I winced at the sound. Mom used to fuss about that. "Lift the chair, Laura, don't drag it." Her voice echoed in my memory, gentle but firm. She'd been gone for over 3 years, yet in moments like this, it felt like she was still here, reminding me not to let Dad bulldoze me into silence. I walked into the living room, the soft carpet muffling my steps. The photos on the mantel caught my eye. There was one of me as a little girl, missing my front teeth, holding a sparkler on the 4th of July. Dad stood behind me in that picture, one hand on my shoulder. He looked proud then, or maybe I just wanted to believe he was. But the truth was harder to swallow. Growing up, Dad never hid his disappointment. When I cried, he called me weak. When I brought home good grades, he barely nodded, saying I should have done better. When I wanted to study art in college, he laughed in my face and told me it was a waste of time. And when Mom defended me, his anger only grew colder. I leaned closer to another frame, a photo of Mom holding me in the backyard garden. Her hair glowed under the afternoon sun, and her smile was wide, easy, full of warmth. She'd loved this house. Every corner had her touch, the flower bed she planted along the fence, the curtains she sewed herself, the chipped teapot she insisted on keeping because it still works just fine. The memories tightened in my chest. To Dad, this house was money waiting to be collected. To me, it was a heartbeat I couldn't let die. I moved to the couch and sank into it, pulling a blanket across my lap. It still smelled faintly of lavender from the sachets Mom tucked into the laundry. I closed my eyes and let the scent pull me back. I remembered the first Christmas without her. The house felt hollow, too quiet. Dad sat at the table with a drink, saying nothing, while I forced myself to hang ornaments on the tree. I cried silently that night, hiding in the hallway so he wouldn't see. He would have told me to stop, to be strong. Strength, to him, was silence. To me, it was survival. But even before Mom passed, Dad's shadow stretched over every part of my life. He controlled money, decisions, even the mood of the house. When I was a teenager, I once asked if I could go on a school trip to Washington, D.C. I'd saved babysitting money for months. He shook his head without looking up from his paper. Not worth it, he muttered. I went to my room and tore the permission slip into pieces, swallowing the disappointment. Mom slipped into my room later, brushing my hair out of my face. Don't let him decide your worth, Laura, she whispered. But how could I not, when every decision seemed to run through him? Now, years later, nothing had changed. Dad still barged in, still expected control, still believed I would cave. And for most of my life, I had. I reached for the folder again, pulling it onto my lap. The papers inside felt solid, like armor. They weren't just documents. They were Mom's final stand against Dad's grip. She must have known this day would come, that he'd try to take what wasn't his. Her trust in me carried its own weight, a responsibility I couldn't ignore. A knock at the door startled me. My heart jumped, but when I peeked through the window, it was only Mrs. Keller from next door. She was in her 70s, wearing her usual cardigan, her silver hair tucked neatly behind her ears. Laura, she called softly. I opened the door, forcing a smile. Hi, Mrs. Keller. She peered at me with kind eyes. I saw your father's truck earlier. Everything all right? I hesitated. The words stuck in my throat. Mrs. Keller had known my family for decades. She'd brought over casseroles when Mom passed, watered the garden when I couldn't bring myself to go outside. If anyone understood, it was her. He wants to sell the house, I admitted, my voice low. Her face tightened. That man, she muttered, shaking her head. Then she softened. Your mother wanted you here. I know that. Don't you let him scare you. I nodded, swallowing hard. I won't. She reached out, squeezing my hand. Good girl. And if you need anything at all, you come to me. After she left, I stood in the doorway, watching the autumn sky turn grey. The air smelled of smoke from someone's fireplace, and the chill crept through my sweater. For a moment, I imagined Mom standing there beside me, arms crossed, determined as ever. You've got this, Laura, I whispered to myself. When I returned to the kitchen, I noticed Dad's coffee cup still sitting on the table, half empty. A ring of dark liquid stained the wood. I stared at it, then picked it up and dumped it in the sink. The sound of the ceramic clinking against the metal basin was sharper than I expected. It wasn't just a cup. It was proof he thought he still belonged here, that this house was his to walk in and out of as he pleased. But it wasn't. Not anymore. I wiped the ring off the table with a cloth, each stroke deliberate. Small, ordinary acts like that gave me strength. This was my kitchen. My home. And for once, I wasn't going to let him take it away. As I folded the cloth and set it aside, I glanced again at the folder on the chair. My pulse quickened. The past weighed heavy on me, years of silence, years of giving in, but the weight of that folder was heavier still. It was the kind of weight that could tip the balance, if only I had the courage to place it on the table. The folder still sat on the chair where I had left it, its edges sharp against the faded cushion. I didn't move it. Not yet. The silence in the house was thick, broken only by the faint ticking of the clock above the stove. It was the kind of silence that felt temporary, fragile, as though it was waiting for someone to shatter it. And someone did. The front door opened without a knock. The hinges groaned as it swung wide, and a familiar voice called, Laura? You here? I froze. It was my brother, Daniel. His footsteps were heavy, purposeful, the way they always were when he came inside like he owned the place. I stayed in the kitchen, watching as he appeared in the doorway. His jacket smelled faintly of cologne, sharp and manufactured, masking the fact that he had probably come straight from Dad's office. Dad told me what's going on, he said without preamble, his eyes flicking toward the folder on the chair. Of course he did. Daniel was 2 years older than me, and he had always been Dad's shadow. Where I was quiet, he was loud. Where I resisted, he conformed. He took the job Dad offered him right after college, and he wore that loyalty like a badge of honor. But I saw it for what it was, a chain. You didn't waste any time, I replied, my voice calm though my chest tightened. This isn't about wasting time. This is about being realistic. He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorway. The house is too much for you. It makes sense to let it go. I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Let it go. That's easy for you to say. You don't even live here. Daniel's jaw tightened. Because I moved on, Laura. You're stuck in the past. This house, it's just wood and drywall. You can't keep clinging to Mom's ghost forever. The words hit harder than I expected, and for a moment, I had to steady myself against the counter. Ghost. That's what he called her memory. This isn't about clinging, I said quietly. It's about honoring what she wanted. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. You think you're the only one who cared about her? You think I didn't lose her too? His voice cracked just slightly, but he covered it quickly, straightening his shoulders. I recognized the move. It was Dad's. Don't let anyone see weakness. I didn't answer right away. My silence stretched between us, brittle and sharp, until he broke it. Dad's right, he said, his tone hardening. We need to be practical. He can sell the place, split the money, and everyone moves on. That's what Mom would have wanted, for us to stop fighting and start living. I shook my head slowly. You're wrong. She wanted peace, yes. But she also wanted this home to stay in the family. She told me. Daniel's brow furrowed. She told you. I hesitated. There it was, the divide, opening wider between us. I could almost see the chasm, stretching from where I stood to where he stood, neither of us willing to cross. She left me something, I said finally, my hand brushing against the folder. Proof. His eyes darted to it again, suspicion flickering across his face. What's in there? Mom's voice, I whispered. The part of her you chose not to hear. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. His chest rose and fell, and I wondered if he would lunge for the folder. Instead, he turned away, pacing the kitchen. His shoes tapped against the floor, restless and uneven. You always do this, he muttered. You make it about feelings. About promises. While the rest of us are trying to be rational. The rest of us. I repeated. Or just you and Dad. The air thickened. He stopped pacing and looked at me, his expression caught between anger and something I couldn't name. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Before he could answer, the phone rang, loud, shrill, slicing through the room. I flinched, and he did too, though neither of us moved at first. Finally, I reached for it. Hello. My voice wavered. Laura. It was Aunt June, Mom's younger sister. Her voice was firm, edged with urgency. I heard your father was over there today. Is it true? He's trying to sell the house. I swallowed hard. Yes. And Daniel's here now. Put him on, she demanded. Daniel raised his eyebrows, but I handed him the phone. He pressed it to his ear, listening for a moment before his expression soured. What do you mean stay out of it? He snapped. This isn't your decision, June. It's Dad's. Her voice carried faintly through the receiver, sharp and unwavering. Daniel's face reddened as she continued, scolding him like he was still a child. When he finally thrust the phone back to me, his hand shook slightly. She's on your side, he muttered bitterly. I took the phone back, pressing it to my ear. Aunt June. Don't you give in, sweetheart, she said firmly. Your mother made her wishes clear to me, too. That house belongs with you. Her words steadied me like an anchor. After we hung up, Daniel stood by the doorway again, shoulders tense. He didn't speak, but the distance between us was louder than any words. You don't have to agree with me, I said softly, but stop pretending Dad's decision is the only one that matters. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For a fleeting second, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who built blanket forts with me in this living room, who ran through the garden with Mom chasing after us, laughing. That boy was gone now, buried under years of Dad's approval. I can't fight him, Daniel said finally, his voice low. You know how he gets. Then don't fight him, I replied. Just don't fight me. His gaze flicked once more to the folder, then back to me. Whatever he saw in my face made him pause. With a heavy sigh, he turned and walked toward the door. "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Laura," he said over his shoulder. The door shut behind him, rattling the frame. The silence returned, thicker now, tinged with sadness. The divide in my family wasn't just about a house. It was about loyalty, love, and the scars Dad had left on all of us. I knew then that this fight wasn't only mine. It was every memory, every word Mom had spoken, every promise I had kept alive. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the divide. I was ready to stand on my side of it, no matter who crossed over, or who didn't. The house felt different after Daniel left, emptier somehow, though the air was still heavy with his words. I stood for a long time in the quiet, my eyes fixed on the folder. The one thing holding the proof I hadn't dared to show anyone yet. I told myself to put it away, to keep it safe upstairs in my room, but when I reached for it, my fingers trembled. It slipped from my hands, landing on the floor with a dull thud. Papers spilled out across the old hardwood, scattering in every direction. I dropped to my knees, gathering them quickly, almost frantic. Each page was a piece of Mom, her letters, her notes, even a copy of her will that Dad pretended didn't exist. My breath caught as I held one page up to the light. Her handwriting, looping and steady, stared back at me. "For Laura. Keep the house. It's where our love lives." My chest tightened. I could almost hear her voice, soft and certain, reminding me that I wasn't crazy for holding on. I pressed the page to my chest when suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the porch. My heart lurched. The door creaked open. Dad. He stood there, his tall frame filling the doorway, his shadow stretching across the floor where the papers still lay. His eyes immediately narrowed at the mess. "What's all this?" His voice was sharp, the kind that demanded obedience. I stayed on my knees, clutching the letter to my chest. "You know what it is." He stepped inside, his shoes crunching slightly on the edge of one paper. My stomach turned as I watched him lift his foot, not even caring what he'd stepped on. "Old scraps," he muttered. "Worthless." "They're not worthless," I shot back, my voice steadier than I felt. "They're Mom's words." His gaze snapped to mine, cold and unflinching. For a moment, I thought he might lunge forward, snatch the papers, and tear them apart. Instead, he walked slowly into the room, circling like he was choosing his angle. "You're making this harder than it has to be," he said, his tone almost calm now. "Too calm. The house isn't yours. It's mine to sell. Your mother's gone, Laura. She can't tell you what to do anymore." The words sliced deeper than I expected. Gone. Can't tell me what to do. That was how he saw her, not a partner, not even a memory, but an obstacle removed. I lifted one of the scattered pages and held it up. "She can't speak, but she wrote. She made it clear. And you've been pretending none of it matters." His jaw twitched. I'd hit a nerve. "You're twisting her words," he said firmly. "No, Dad. You are." The silence that followed was unbearable. My hands shook, the papers rattling softly. That's when one sheet fluttered loose from the pile, drifting across the floor until it landed right at his feet. He bent down, slowly, and picked it up. For a moment, I thought he would ignore it. But his eyes scanned the page, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Recognition. Guilt. Then, just as quickly, it hardened into stone. "This changes nothing," he said flatly, crumpling the paper in his hand. A surge of anger shot through me. I jumped to my feet, heat rising in my chest. "It changes everything. You can't erase her. You can't erase me." His grip tightened around the crumpled paper, his knuckles white. "You're my daughter. You'll do as I say." "No," my voice cracked, but it rang clear. "Not this time." We stood there, locked in a standoff, the crumpled page between us like a symbol of everything broken. Then, in the quiet, something unexpected happened. Another page fluttered loose from the pile, drifting closer to me. It wasn't her will. It wasn't a letter. It was a photograph. I bent down and picked it up. It was of Mom, sitting on the porch steps with me and Daniel when we were little. Her smile was wide, her arms around us. Behind her, the house looked alive, flowers blooming, paint fresh, windows glowing with light. I held it up for Dad to see. This house isn't just walls. It's her. It's us. If you take it away, what's left? For the first time, I saw his eyes soften. Not much, but enough. He looked at the photo, then at me, and for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, he would stop fighting. But then his face closed off again, and he dropped the crumpled paper onto the pile. "You'll regret this stubbornness," he said, his voice low. He turned and walked out, the door slamming behind him. The house shook, but I didn't. Not this time. I sank to the floor, gathering the papers carefully, smoothing out the wrinkles. My hands lingered on each one, like I could absorb her strength through the ink. The folder lay open beside me, empty now, waiting to be filled again. I slid the papers back in, one by one, as though rebuilding something broken. When the last page was tucked inside, I closed the folder firmly and whispered, "I won't let you disappear, Mom. Not like this." The house was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like it was listening, like it was waiting for what came next. I placed the folder on the table this time, not hidden, not tucked away, but right where anyone could see it. Because this fight wasn't over. And I wasn't hiding anymore. The folder sat in plain sight on the table, its edges neat, its weight undeniable. For the first time, I didn't feel like guarding it, hiding it, or clutching it to my chest as if someone might steal it away. No, it belonged here, in the open, where its presence could not be denied. The house seemed to exhale with me. The walls no longer felt like hollow echoes but like quiet witnesses, holding steady as I gathered myself. My hands rested flat on the table, fingertips brushing the folder, when the sound of a car engine drifted from the driveway. I knew it was him. Dad's heavy steps followed, firm against the porch boards. This time, I didn't flinch when the door opened. He entered slowly, scanning the room. His eyes landed on the folder, and for a flicker of a moment, something in him shifted, like he hadn't expected me to display it so boldly. "You're still here," he muttered, closing the door behind him. "I live here," I replied evenly. His gaze narrowed. "You think this changes things?" Putting that folder on the table. I didn't move. "It doesn't change things. It reveals them." The silence between us stretched long and taut. He stepped closer, his voice lower now, almost coaxing. "Laura, this isn't a battle you can win. You're young. You don't know how messy things get when lawyers are involved, when money comes into play. You don't want to drag your mother's memory through that." I looked at him squarely, my voice steady though my chest burned. "You already dragged her memory through it the moment you pretended she never left these words." His jaw worked, but no reply came. He was running out of the certainty he always carried like armor. I opened the folder, sliding one page forward. The same letter I'd pressed against my chest earlier. "This isn't about money or lawyers. It's about her voice. And you're afraid of it, because it proves you wrong." He stared at the paper, but he didn't reach for it. Instead, he pulled out a chair and sat across from me, the old wood creaking under his weight. I wasn't used to this posture, him sitting, me sitting, neither of us raising our voices. It unsettled me more than the yelling. "Do you really believe keeping this house will fix anything?" he asked quietly. "Do you think it'll bring her back?" Tears pricked my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "No. But it keeps her close. And it honors what she built. This isn't just about the past, it's about the future she wanted for us." His shoulders slumped slightly, the first crack in his unyielding stance. For a moment, I saw the man who once carried me on his back through this very hallway, who fixed the leaky faucet for Mom without her even asking, who used to laugh, really laugh, before bitterness carved it out of him. "You sound just like her," he murmured. It wasn't an insult. Not this time. I leaned forward. "Maybe that's what scares you. Because she's not here to argue, so I have to. And deep down, you know she'd be on my side." The silence grew heavy, but not sharp, more like a blanket settling over the room. He didn't look at me, but at the folder, his eyes lingering on it as if it held more than just paper. Then came the sound of the door again. Daniel stepped inside, his face pale, his tie loose around his neck. He froze when he saw us at the table, the folder open between us. "What's going on?" he asked cautiously. Dad straightened, his voice firmer again. "Your sister thinks that pile of paper means something." Daniel's eyes darted between us, then to the folder. His brow furrowed. "You mean Mom's letters?" I stiffened. "You knew about them?" He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I saw her writing them before she got sick. I didn't read them all, but I knew she was leaving something for you." My breath caught. "And you never said anything?" His face tightened with shame. "Dad told me not to. Said it would only confuse things." The betrayal stung, but more than that, it confirmed what I had known all along. Dad wasn't just ignoring her words, he'd buried them. I turned back to him, my voice trembling with both anger and resolve. "You silenced her, Dad. And you used Daniel to help." He didn't deny it. He just looked older, wearier, the fight slipping out of him like air from a balloon. Daniel moved closer to the table, his eyes lingering on the photo of Mom that still peeked from the pile. His voice softened. "She looks happy there. Happier than I've seen her in years." I swallowed hard. Because this house was her heart. You can't take that away. For the first time, Daniel didn't argue. He pulled out a chair and sat down beside me, his hand brushing the edge of the folder. Not to take it away, but to steady it. To steady me. The silence that followed was thick but different now, less like a storm waiting to break, more like a room exhaling after years of holding its breath. Dad leaned back in his chair, his eyes closed for a long moment. When he opened them again, they were tired, but softer. "You really won't let this go, will you?" he asked. I shook my head. "No. Because letting it go would mean letting her go. And I won't." The clock ticked above us, steady and patient. Dad's hand moved slowly, releasing the crumpled page he still had in his pocket. He set it on the table, smoothing it out with care he hadn't shown before. For once, he didn't argue. He didn't sign papers. He didn't push them across the table. He just sat there in silence, the folder between us, no longer a weapon, but a truth too heavy to ignore. That silence was the closest thing to resolution we were going to get. I placed my hand over the folder, over Mom's words, and for the first time in years, I felt peace bloom quietly inside me. Not victory. Not revenge. Just peace. Because sometimes, silence is louder than any fight. And in that silence, I heard her voice, steady, gentle, reminding me I was never truly alone. And I knew, no matter what came next, this house, this home, was still ours.